This episode is brought to you by Prime. What if you had one more chance with the one that got away?
Sam.
You came home.
Based on the best-selling novel from Carly Fortune. Every Year After follows childhood friends Sam and Percy as they reunite in the dreamy, nostalgic lakeside town of Barry's Bay.
Love can be hard to find. So if you're lucky enough to find that person, never let go.
A second chance at first love. Every Year After, now streaming only on Prime.
You have one new message. Translating. Disney and Pixar's Hoppers is now available on Disney+.
You could say that again.
Critics are calling it Pixar's funniest movie ever and a wildly entertaining ride. Blizzard Potato. It's certified fresh and verified hot.
Now we party.
This is incredible!
Wow, I am clearing the rest of the day.
Disney and Pixar's Hoppers, now available on Disney+. Rated PG.
Pod Save the King!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Pod Save the King. It has been a busy week for the House of Windsor. We have seen two queens out and about, Camilla and the Queen of Daytime, Lorraine Kelly. We've seen Andrew driving around with a very suspect bruise on his face. More of that later. We've seen Prince Harry and Meghan Markle apparently being furious over a new security battle. William has been around in Norfolk riding around with the police, and we will give you a all-encompassing look at what to expect for Trooping the Colour this weekend as the Royals celebrate the King's official birthday. I'm your host, Russell Myers, the Royal Editor of the Daily Mirror, and I'm joined as ever by Jennifer Newton, who has been relaxing with a few days off after it's been a very, very busy start to the summer period. I say summer period, but we are not together this Thursday afternoon. It is wet and windy in London. But Jen, let's start with something to look forward to. Hopefully brighter, sunnier climes are on the horizon because there is a celebration in order. The King's official birthday this weekend, Trooping the Colour, always is a great occasion. Hopefully we're going to see the royal family en masse. There is something to look forward to with this, isn't there? Because, you know, what a 6 months it's been. I think it's been very much clouded with Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, no doubt. All the discussion over his arrest. We'll come on to him a little bit later. But it has been, you know, pretty much a difficult few months, let's say, for the King and the rest of the royal family. So this is certainly an opportunity for everybody to come together to not only celebrate the King, but also celebrate what the royal family is about, which is unity, togetherness, looking forward to working together. What can we expect from this Saturday?
I think we can expect from this Saturday what we expect every year from Trooping the Colour, which is a load of horses, parades, carriages, that great military spectacle on Horse Guards Parade, and then the balcony fly past over Buckingham Palace, and then we'll obviously see all the royals on the palace balcony. And I think, that what you just said before is quite important for them. I think this year, especially for them to all be on the balcony, the working royals together, to put out that real show of unity, because we all know that picture that's going to be taken of them all on the balcony, you know, gets used quite a lot and it'll go around the world. And I think that's going to be quite important for them after the kind of scandal and not very good headlines they've had over the past 6 months.
Yeah, you say sort of working royals. We've seen this over the last few years. I mean, it was the big celebration in the late Queen's day and age where there was, sort of dozens of royals out there, sort of all the different generations from the late Queen, Prince Philip, who would have been there, all the younger royals as well. Of course, we'll expect to see the Prince and Princess of Wales and their 3 children, but it's a much more slimmed down affair these years. Of course, Charles has always spoken about the slimmed down monarchy. Then it sort of turned into working royals only. That's sort of helped shape the new dynamic of not having Harry and Meghan on the balcony or invited to these sorts of events. Of course, Andrew not being in the picture anymore. Beatrice and Eugenie not being working royals. We're coming to a little bit of sort of controversy involving them as well this week, because it has been sort of one of those topsy-turvy points of discussion for the royal family. You talk about unity, whether the royal family are united in some aspects of what has been in the headlines over the last couple of weeks is remains to be seen, because there was a big audit from the National Audit Office in the UK. This is one of the bodies that has been looking at the rental incomes and sort of associations for the royal family on different residences. And this includes sort of Buckingham Palace and Royal Lodge, which has obviously been in the headlines an awful lot to do with Andrew being evicted from the Windsor estate. And it seems that Andrew was receiving undisclosed rental income from subletting cottages on that estate that was obviously had been leasing from the Crown estate. And the public spending watchdog, which is this National Audit Office body, revealed that he had been receiving money from subletting these cottages to members of staff. Now, the reason it gets a little bit complicated is because that he had paid, we know that the sum of about 7.5 million about 20 years ago to take the lease of Royal Lodge for 20 years. Before he was evicted. Then he was just paying a peppercorn rent, which is a very much sort of just underwriting the lease. So he was living there rent free, and the agreement was that he would pay for the upkeep of the estate and the mansion, which we know that he hadn't necessarily been doing because of the state that he'd left it in. Why is this controversial if it was written into the lease that he was allowed to do this? The Crown estate wasn't receiving the money. He was receiving the monies himself. Buckingham Palace said that they don't act for Andrew anymore. They were trying to sort of dampen down the fury that he was receiving the money by saying that it was just for the upkeep and the maintenance of these properties. But why were people so outraged about this?
I think people were so outraged, and not just about this, about the peppercorn rent situation, which emerged a few months ago, is because whatever money is made in profit by the Crown estate goes back into the public coffers. It goes back to the government, to the Treasury, for them to spend on, public services. Essentially it's taxpayers' money. And I think why people have become so upset about this is because if he isn't paying rent, or if he's making money off this arrangement that he's got with the Crown estate, then does that mean that the taxpayers losing out because they're not getting a market value, or, Andrew's making money for himself, even though he might say, well, I was using that money to pay for the upkeep of Royal Lodge, which is massive.
Which he clearly wasn't.
We saw the pictures, didn't we, not so long ago?
Yeah, well, the Mirror did a series of pictures from the estate when he had been evicted by the king several months ago. I mean, it was in such a state of disrepair. You had sort of walls falling down, paint peeling off the exterior of the buildings. The grounds were in a state of disrepair. I remember the Sun had done a story of some member of staff who'd been in, saying that there was damp within the building. It sort of smelt of damp all round it. I mean, this is a 30-room mansion that is not only part of the Crown estate and supposed to have been kept in good order through that deal that they had with the former prince, but it is also somewhere which other members of the royal family may have been expected to live in. It's been part of the portfolio that has been sort of one of the jewels in the royal residence portfolio for many years, and to see it sort of fall into that state of disrepair is rather concerning. Now, this report also looked into the royal residences, not only but owned by the royal family en masse, but especially Mountbatten-Windsor and his family. That looked into the case that they had 12 properties owned by the Crown estates, and this was not only Royal Lodge and the cottages that he was then renting, which incidentally the National Audit Office wouldn't tell us how much he was earning, just that Buckingham Palace were guiding that it was, he wasn't earning sort of millions of pounds, and it was sort of done at a reasonable rate for staff to live in. I mean, that, again, I don't think that answers the question as to why this was happening and why he was sort of trousering the rent. But also controversially was that the king has been paying the rent for Beatrice and Eugenie to live in, or to sort of have access to Beatrice living in St James's Palace, how she has an apartment there, and Eugenie having a cottage in Kensington Palace. I mean, why on earth is this happening? They're not working royals. They've certainly done lots of charity work. It's been quite laudable in the past. They both are working individuals. They're married to spouses who are independently very wealthy. Is this outrage sort of justified as to why they are living in royal residences, why they have this sort of security clearance when they don't perform any public duties? Is it justified?
I think it's a difficult one, but I think it could be because, why should, like you say, somebody like Beatrice and Eugenie, who have their own careers, they've got incomes coming in, they have homes elsewhere as well, have access to these places which are in, top,
prime real estate.
Prime real estate.
We'd all like to live in an apartment in
central
St.
London
James's Palace.
or
in central London.
Yeah, exactly. And they're paying nothing for it. And now it emerged that it's actually the king that's footing the bill for it. And this was because, many years ago it was put in place that the late Queen would pay for these apartments or cottages for them, and he's just continued on to do so. I mean, it's massive privilege to me because, how many other people would have their very wealthy uncle pay for a London home for them? And they, it will be argued that the king is using his private money for this, but it's just not, I just think it's not a good look and the optics aren't good given, which I know it's maybe not fair to them, but they are unfortunately associated with their parents and what they've done. And I know that's not their fault, but that's maybe the reality of the situation for them.
Well, the situation, I mean, it all speaks about entitlement, and you're right to sort of point out that central point of that it was through the late Queen that this arrangement had been negotiated, and you can imagine Andrew had made certainly made very clear to his mother that he wanted his daughters to be afforded all the privileges of princesses. You look at Princess Anne and the fact that her children haven't got royal titles. They're sort of very much normal individuals. We saw the royal wedding at the weekend, which was rather glamorous. But aside from Peter Phillips and having the King and Queen there and the Prince and Princess of Wales, I mean, he has a normal job as does Zara Phillips. The problem for Beatrice and Eugenie to have this afforded to them, and I think people feel very, very sorry for them having been lumped into the scandal involving their parents. That is undeniable. And certainly their involvement in the Epstein files is no admission of guilt, or there's no reason to suspect them of wrongdoing. But it does speak to absolute entitlement and privilege, and the fact that they still have this over the new guard, over the king, that he is decided to still carry on paying this, I think will change, because there's a story in the Times just a couple of days after this broke that it will be looked at. That Buckingham Palace said, these things are under the yearly review. I think there's a follow-up in the Sunday Times saying that William would certainly be looking at this. I mean, we know he is always looking to change. He was always very much centered on the public perception of the royal family, and that is the key for the royals moving forward. We are living in an absolutely dire cost of living crisis, not only in the UK but around the world, and for non-working royals to have this entitlement and privilege whilst they still have other means. I mean, it's not that they are on hard times and that they need to be looked after. It's possibly different for the Duke of Kent, who has accommodations paid for, which they are in their 80s. They've had decades of service. For two young women who are married and have their own families, to still have this, I think is probably something that does need to change, and it does show you sort of where the royal family is moving in a direction where they are probably being forced to adapt rather than adapting themselves. And that's sometimes a criticism of the monarchy at large, that it does take a bit of time for them to realise the wheels of change do need to move a little bit faster sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, for Beatrice and Eugenie's situation, it's one thing maybe your grandmother paying your rent, but for your uncle to pay your rent, did they really need that? And then, when it
And
becomes
it's a different
it's a
era, I
different time.
think.
And I even think in the past almost 4 years since the late Queen died, a lot has changed in that time as well. So to even say, yeah, but she did it, well, it's 4 years on now. And what are we going to be sitting here in 10 years or 20 years time once William comes to the throne and say, oh yeah, my cousin's paying I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just not going to wash, is it?
I think certainly you're right that William wouldn't be dealing with something like that. He would understand the public perception, and who knows whether we would have even found this out. We didn't know about Andrew's peppercorn rent or the deal that he'd had with the Crown Estate until it became controversial of his refusal to leave Royal Lodge. We then haven't found out, or we weren't told. We're still not being told the full story of how much money he was actually earning after paying that sum of one peppercorn if required. No doubt, the unwillingness to still share the financial obligations of members of the royal family is a real cause for concern. And I think that many people were outraged by it. I mean, regardless of let's say Andrew was doing this as a favour to members of staff, or why was the Crown Estate not getting that money to then make sure was put back into the renovations, which surely he was not passing on. Now, we'll move on to, I just before we move on to Andrew, because literally just hours after this story broke, it was incredible pictures emerged of this huge bruise covering most of his right side of his face, not only sparking questions as to what on earth had gone on. I mean, we don't really know how much what he does with his time. Isn't really, he's very rarely seen out and about, sort of banned from riding horses around the King's Estate in Sandringham as he did in Windsor. But can you shed any light on this? Because I think it's still shrouded in mystery. I mean, if you haven't seen the pictures, they're available on most websites now. It's absolutely extraordinary bruise. It looked pretty dramatic. Any further clues on what's happened?
Well, it's like you say, it is a bit shrouded in mystery. It was, I think, last Thursday afternoon. These pictures kind of dropped of him driving his car around Sandringham Estate, near where he lives on the Sandringham Estate, which it isn't too unusual for us to get the pictures, every so often of him doing this. And it was actually the first time that he'd been seen in public in a picture like this in weeks, ever since that update from Thames Valley Police a few weeks ago that they were widening the investigation into him following his arrest. And yeah, he's just driving his car, and like you say, it's not just a small bruise, it's right around his eye and his cheek and right down to his mouth. And for anyone else to have a bruise, if I saw someone with a bruise like that, I'd be like, oh my gosh, what have you done to yourself, or what's happened? And
I think if there was a day to not go out driving with a huge suspect bruise on your face when you just had this, the controversial revelation of these details of your financial arrangements, it's probably that day. I mean, a source close to the former Duke of York did tell one of the British newspapers that this prominent patch is not a cause for concern, and there had been no drama. Somebody else told the Times that it was relating to an ongoing medical condition, but not a cause for concern. I mean, maybe he does bruise like a peach, but it was it looked pretty concerning nevertheless. But I don't think this issue is going to go away. I think it will raise its head again once we've 6 months down the line, where people will start asking questions as to whether there had been this annual review of the royal residences, whether Beatrice and Eugenie have to sort of hand back the keys to these luxury abodes that they have access to, and an unfortunate occurrence for them. But I suppose the royals have to probably be seen to be moving with the times. Let's come on to sort of matters stateside, because we'll come on to the World Cup in a minute, because there's World Cup fever. The World Cup is kicking off in Mexico. Of course, it is across 3 countries this year: United States, Mexico, and Canada. Hoping that England will bring it home. I'm not sure it is coming home, judging by the sort of exuberance in the England camp. But we're certainly optimistic as England fans, and then we'll sort of lose on penalties in the quarterfinals to Brazil.
No, it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, it's coming home.
60 years, yeah, definitely.
But Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, I've seen these. Let's try and pick these apart, because the hyperbole of some of the headlines sometimes. Let's just read a couple. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's fury reignited over Pippa Middleton's security battle. I've seen headlines about double standards over Pippa Middleton's family being granted permission for stricter security measures. Well, how can we pick apart this? I mean, is this actually an issue? This relates to Pippa and her husband, hedge fund manager James Matthews, installing huge electronic security gates at their lavish Berkshire estate to provide extra protection for their family. Apparently, there's been a huge backlash from local walkers who said it prevented public access. They live in this huge mansion they recently purchased a few years ago. They've been worried about their security and their privacy, which is absolutely understandable, but they've unveiled these huge security gates and been given access to or been given permission to do so. Apparently this has is understood to have angered Prince Harry, who is still being denied automatic security protections in the UK. Of course, he lost that lengthy security battle to reinstate them last May. That is still ongoing. There is a judicial review, or a sort of governmental review from the Home Secretary after Harry had appealed to Shabina Mahmood about that. Is this likely to be the case? This doesn't seem altogether believable to me. I think Harry and Meghan probably got bigger things to worry about, haven't they? But how did you pick this apart?
Well, I don't think you can compare the two situations, really. I think they're totally different things. Yes, there has been, I think it's some sort of like public inquiry into the situation regarding Pippa Middleton and James Matthews over these gates that are blocking off some walkers who can't go. But I'm not saying it's not a big issue for these walkers, but it does seem a very local issue. I think the inquiry was being held in some church hall in Berkshire somewhere.
It's proper Middle England, isn't it? We call them NIMBYs in the United Kingdom. NIMBY, not in my backyard. I'm sure there's some other acronym across the world that people use for similar descriptions. But it does seem that is this a classic case of NIMBYism? Is this sort of walkers and ramblers sort of having their revenge against the sort of wealthy and powerful of the countryside? It does seem a little bit like that. I mean, you can understand it from both points of view. Both Pippa and James Matthews, incredibly wealthy, live on this huge estate in Berkshire, and people are very angered that they can't sort of use this right of way that have probably been able to walk through for hundreds of years, and now you've got this sort of wealthy land baron coming in and telling the poor ramblers that they can't walk through his estate anymore.
Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, when you compare that to what Prince Harry has been asking for, I think it's like comparing chalk and cheese, really. But to say that Harry is possibly angry about a security situation in the UK, I think that might be, there might be a grain of truth to that, because it does seem that is something that he wants. And it's only literally a few weeks till he's due to be in the UK for the 1 year to go to Invictus. And we have heard stories about how, well, not even stories, he said it himself, hasn't he? He doesn't feel he can bring Meghan and his two children to the UK unless he has this security, the security situation arrangements that he had before when he was a working royal reinstated whenever he's in the UK. And if that's
it's not great for Harry, is it? I mean, he can't bring his wife and children to the UK. He can't. He's probably going to have a fleeting visit with the king. I know there was discussions about whether the king was going to turn up in Birmingham for the. Is it? No, it's just in the UK. It's not the anniversary. We've had the 10-year anniversary, but
it's like 1 year till the Birmingham Games.
Yeah, it's a big deal because it's a sort of back on home soil. It hasn't been in the United Kingdom since its launch. 2014, I think was launched, and it is a big deal. In another world, all the royal family would have been there. They would have been celebrating this huge achievement that he brought, from absolute just an idea on paper, and it's now been round the world to several incredible locations. It's helped thousands of competitors find a new lease of life. I mean, I've spoken to some of the competitors myself around the world that said it's absolutely saved their life from having these stark suicidal thoughts of not knowing what they were going to do with the rest of their lives. And Invictus came along and gave them a completely different reason to live. So it should be applauded. Unfortunately, I don't think that there is a way that the royal family can be involved, and certainly the king, whilst this security row is still ongoing. There is definitely sympathies with Harry because of how long this has taken. He's sort of lost the court case, then the Court of Appeal. He's gone to ask for this governmental review, and still the government seem to be dragging their heels over it. So let's wait and see. I mean, we've still got a few weeks. It could all change dramatically, and we could have sort of a California ensemble over in Birmingham for the 1 year anniversary to the Birmingham Games, which no doubt we will all look to. But listen, the royal family have been out and about this week. Today we've seen William. I've seen the headline writers have been out and about. He's become the Prince of Wales as he took a debut ride in an emergency vehicle named in his honour. And then he has been on an away day in Norfolk, talking to local police forces, talking to bikers who use the Norfolk blood bike surface, and even admitted to riding motorbikes and said that he'd had been in disguise. I mean, I thought the most adventurous he'd got recently was whizzing around on that, what do they call it, electric scooter around Windsor. You imagine him riding on a motorbike around the Windsor estate. But there was it's great to see William out and about in Norfolk. Of course, the Walesers have spent the half term over in Norfolk over the last couple of weeks. We've just had a bit of a relaxing time for half term, and Queen Camilla was out and about. She met the Queen of Daytime TV, Lorraine Kelly. Both of them were at St Mungo's accommodation, which is a homeless charity in South London. Camilla was joined not only by broadcaster but several other famous faces talking about a reading scheme. She'd been donating books to the homelessness charity, and also sort of, which I found was really interesting, the Queen's Reading Room has been sharing this groundbreaking research that sort of reading and sharing reading groups can act as a therapeutic tool in trauma recovery, which is very, very interestingly being used by St Mungo's after a colleague had started a book group for people back in 2024, and seems to not only establish this partnership with the Queen's Reading Room, but is also being sort of rolled out across their services as well. So good luck to St Mungo's, and the Queen's Reading Room obviously going to new incredible heights. Now, just before we go, and and they'll all sort of log into watching Mexico, South Africa tonight for the big one. To kick off the World Cup. The King has been at Grimsby Town Football Club, which is one of the oldest football clubs in the world. On the day that the World Cup finals kick off, he's been an away day in the seaside town. Very much sort of nuts and bolts of one of these King away days, meeting local leaders, meeting businesses, talking to them about the local economy and the sort of opportunities that are being shaped in the town. But we're just expecting him to get to the to finish this engagement as we're talking to you. I haven't seen any copy of him saying it's coming home just yet. It might be a bit controversial because obviously
Scotland.
Did tell. Yeah, well, he did say. So who have we got? We've got Scotland, England, Canada, Australia. And lots of other Commonwealth countries, no doubt he'll be looking towards as well. I'm trying to think of some.
And New Zealand in it as well?
Yeah, New Zealand are in it. And 48 countries in this year's World Cup is absolutely incredible. There's lots to be excited about, but I suppose it would be a bit controversial for him to say it's coming home. This is the tagline that always gets wheeled out because England won the World Cup in 1966 and nobody can seem to, one, remember it, or to forget that it once happened and it might happen again. However, when I was in Washington with King and the state dinner that Donald Trump held, he went totally over Donald Trump's head. But the King made an amazing joke by saying, obviously as King of Canada, we are very much both hosts for the World Cup. I don't think Donald Trump really understood what he meant, but of course the King is the sovereign head of state of Canada and these other nations that we just pointed out as well. Just a little bit about the King. I mean, he's had this sort of incredible schedule at the moment. Is this a chance to relax for Trooping the Colour this weekend, or is it more performative? We all say it's the King's or the monarch's official birthday, but sort of how much do you think he finds that relaxing?
Well, I don't know if he finds it relaxing as such. I mean, he doesn't ride Trooping the Colour now, so I suppose he gets in a carriage, so that's like one less thing to worry about. But I don't know, how much can you relax when all eyes are on you, and
there are millions of people around the world.
And to be fair, it has been quite a busy schedule for him lately. When you look at all the engagements that he's been doing and the amount of places that he's been, and it doesn't seem to be getting any quieter anytime soon. We've got Royal Ascot next week as well, and Garterday as well. Yeah, so it's
again more controversy. Will we see?
Yeah,
Beatrice and usually there have been sort of they have been, they haven't been questions over whether they've been invited. Will they be in the carriage procession like they have been in previous times? Whether the King has invited them into the royal box, there will be all eyes. I mean, let's sort of hedge our bets. I mean,
I'm going to put a bet on right now.
Let's see if they will bet. I'm under the bookies will take a bet.
What odds can you get?
They moved from the colour of the Queen's hat to the colour of the King's tie. Can we get odds on whether Beatrice and Eugenie will be at Royal Ascot? I mean, it's a 5-day festival. I don't think they will be. I think there's been a lot of controversy. I think there's been so much written at the moment. But then saying that, I mean, maybe the King, he is very fond of them.
Well, he's paying their rent, so
he's paying their rent, yeah. So
you can't dislike them too much.
Let's hedge our bets. You can say that they're going to be there, and I'll say that they won't be. I mean, what do you reckon?
I actually don't know. Is it truthfully? I wouldn't be surprised if they were there, but I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't either. I mean, they were at Peter Philip's wedding at the weekend, but is that a different situation? Because that was like a private family event, and although yes, there were cameras there wasn't actually a lot of opportunity for photos and to see the different interaction between the family members. Whereas Royal Ascot, when they're all in that parade ring after they get off the carriages, or even if they're not in the carriage procession, they're just there, you always see them interacting. And would the King want to be, I know it sounds awful, but like photographed next to them, or would William want to be photographed next to them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they'll go on a day where William and Catherine are there. I think the King, like you said, it could be 50-50. People will be interested. All the photographers' lenses will be pointed on the royal box to see if they are actually there. So let's wait and see. We'll bring you that next week, and be looking forward to some of the hundreds of World Cup games that are going on. I mean, let us know how you're celebrating the World Cup, whether you actually care or not. We're probably going to be speaking about it for as long as England are involved in it. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining me as usual. Please do join us on the socials. I'm at Russell J. Myers. We're at Pod Save on Instagram, and Jennifer Newton 1 on Instagram as well. We'll be joining you next week with all the latest from Royal Ascot, whether they have turned up, Beatrice and Eugenie. Maybe we will see former Prince Andrew with a bandage around his head or some of the broken arm. Who knows what's going to happen next week? But thanks for joining.
Pod Save the King!